what a delight to be back in not in Bulgaria. I was there in 2017 and will always remember the incredible session, not only because I lost my computer, but the people were so generous and so kind. And I'd always wanted to visit Bulgaria. Our daughter, and I'll show you a picture, that's our daughter here. She lived in Bulgaria for 18 months doing
Oh,
work for
wow.
her church. And she taught me that this means no and this means yes. And so we have it a little backwards. So I am just honored to be back. I'll put this up so that if you want to get copies of these slides, you can get the QR code or you can get the website. So I know that's a common question, and don't hesitate while I just introduce it. On the other thing I'd like to say is welcome to my home. I tend to be an introvert and travel and do other work, but you're in my home office seeing the world that I live in. And I get to see inside Zori's home a little bit. Zori, I've
Yeah.
not prepped you. Can you show me, I showed you a picture of my daughter, our daughter. Can you show me something personal about you? What's just around
Oh,
you?
well,
Oh, this is
around
exciting.
me, I'm in my mom's kitchen actually because she's helping me take care of my son who is 2 years
Wonderful.
old at this point. So
Oh,
you see her beautiful
flowers.
flowers.
Oh, we should have your mom come on the picture, but she would probably not want to do
She
that.
will be terrified.
Yeah. Well, thank your mom
Uh,
for helping with your children. And I know that helping
I
with
will.
children is so difficult. Our daughter, this daughter again, has two children. And in this crisis, she's had to do homeschooling. And it's so difficult with children at home and sheltering. And we'll talk about that. But I
I
am
can
just
imagine.
honored to be here. Thank you. Let me tell you a
Thank
little bit
you.
about
Yeah.
what I do. I'm a professor, as Zori said. And by the way, if you have questions, please put them in the chat room or the Q&A, and Zori will summarize those questions, and then we'll talk about those in a few minutes.
That's right.
I'm a professor at the Ross School, and when this is not happening in the world, I travel a lot, and I try to understand what's happening in organizations that affects our lives in a day-to-day way. And here's the insight I have from the last couple of months. And it's not my idea. It's a crisis is a terrible thing to waste. In the United States, Martin Luther King, whose picture I have in my office, was a great activist, and he talked about the crisis enables progress. Winston Churchill in England, in the UK, never let a good crisis go to waste. At the top left, Albert Einstein, in every crisis is an opportunity. I like the quote at the bottom left. It's from a women's tea time group, a group of women who got together. A crisis is an opportunity to change your path. I would assume in Bulgaria, you've had many crises. In fact, I know that through our daughter. How do we in those crises find opportunities? And I know in the crisis, we can get discouraged and disappointed and challenged. What I like to look at is the opportunity in those crises. So what I'm going to do today is share with you some ideas that I hope will have impact. I'm going to start with a very simple assumption that affects not only HR, but business leaders. Look at the COVID crisis and how it affects us. And then most of my session is going to be what I see as 10 opportunities that we can discover in this crisis. So I'll start pretty quickly with an assumption. What's the most important thing we as business or HR leaders in our organization can give an employee? And by the way, I know I'm speaking pretty quickly. When I was in Bulgaria in 2017, I was amazed at your language. I am not able to speak Bulgarian. And I asked our daughter if she'd like to get on the phone and introduce herself to you in Bulgarian. And she said, no, you have a very difficult language. But she reminded me that this means no and this means yes. So, okay, you've had a chance to think about it. These are the answers I usually get. Number one, I can give our employees a sense of belief, meaning, purpose, what we're trying to do. Two, I can give them an ability to get better, to learn and to grow. Three, I can give our employees a sense of belonging, a sense of community, a sense of relationships. Four, all of the above. And five, none of the above. When I do this as a poll, and I've done this on other webinars, almost 70 or 80% say number four, all of the above, and fewer than 5% say number five. But I believe the answer is number 5. The most important thing that we in business or HR can give our employees is an organization that succeeds in the marketplace. If we don't succeed in the marketplace, in Bulgaria or the other neighboring countries, there is no workplace. There's no belief, there's no becoming, there's no belonging. Our job as business and HR leaders is to win and succeed in the marketplace. And that becomes increasingly difficult. The overall assumption, and this is a very busy slide, is that what we have to do is create value for others. And the context means we have to understand the marketplace in which we work. The content is what we do. That's the king. That's the individual. The context is the kingdom. That's where we do it. Up until January of this year, we talked about the future of work, especially technical changes. The world is more digital. The world is more efficient and innovative through technology. And we needed to respond. But then something happened. And so I'll stop. My fundamental assumption, we create value by looking outside, by doing things others value in the marketplace. And then COVID happened. We can all find a date, and in Bulgaria, it's shaping world differently than it is in the United States, where the effect is big. Thank goodness nobody in our family immediately, or those we know closely, have been directly affected, but we're all affected. We have to learn new words. Before March or April of this year, I didn't know much about a global pandemic. I found out later that I don't know if I have a picture of him. My grandfather, and I'll see if I can have a picture real quick. My grandfather got sick. I'll see this real quick. My grandfather in 1917 got sick from the Spanish flu. And as a result, that's it. I've never shown this picture before. That's my grandfather. Let me see if I can see it here, right here. My grandfather got sick from the Spanish flu, and so he was not able to serve in World War I. Anyway, that's the last global pandemic 100 years ago. I'll quit showing pictures. So in that crisis, what is it we in HR and business leaders do about responding? Here's the logic. In any setting, there's a business discussion. The business leader or the general manager sits at the head of the table, and they say, here's our strategy. The finance person comes to the discussion and says, how do we manage our financials, our numbers, our economics? The marketing person says, how well do we manage our customers and marketplace? The operations person says, how well do we manage our systems, supply chain, manufacturing, technology? In human resources, what is it we manage in order to respond to this corona crisis? And I'm going to suggest it's 3 things. In human resources, we manage individuals. We manage the talent, the workforce, and the people. Do we have the right people? Do we have the talent? Do we have the workforce? Do we have the people so that we can survive? But that's not all that we manage. We also have to manage the organization. Do we have the right culture, the right workplace, the right systems? And the intersection of those is leadership. So let me say again what I want to highlight. We live in a world that's changing, and the corona crisis has affected so many countries. Again, Bulgaria perhaps less than others. But before that crisis, during the crisis, and now after the immediate crisis, HR's job is to work with business leaders to manage talent, the fingers, organization, the fist, and leadership, the combination. When we can manage those 3 things, we tend to help our organization compete and win in the marketplace. One quick caveat. When we look at individual talent versus organization, the fist, which matters more? Which matters more in building an organization that succeeds in the marketplace? Is it the individual talent or is it the organization? And here's what we found. The organization, taking individuals and putting them together as a system, has 4 times as much impact. 4 times as much impact as the individual talent. So our work says in HR, we walk into a meeting with our business leader and we say, do we have the right individual talent, the ingredients? Do we build a great organization that has even more impact? And do leaders work together to help make that happen? Now, in that crisis, here's the context, as I talked about. The content is critical, what we do. The context is the setting in which we do it, the kingdom. So how are we going to respond to the corona crisis? What are we going to do with individuals? What are we going to do as an organization? And what are we going to do with leadership? Here's what often happens on the left-hand side. We face a threat. This crisis is a threat. Here's what's wrong. And individuals have fear, anxiety, hopelessness. Organizations have low morale and problems, and leadership is despair. How in this crisis can we discover opportunities? Can we focus on strengths and what's right? Can we have optimism and success for the individuals? Can we have an organization that creates the right culture that moves us forward? Can we have leaders that are empowered? That's the question we've been asking, not just in this crisis, but for 30 years. And I put this up because I'm finding in the middle of this crisis that a lot of people have answers that they're discovering, but it's not based on research. It's based on small individual experiences. One person sent me a note and he said, here's how to manage in a virtual world. I did a study. And I wrote back and said, who did you study? And he said, I asked 20 of my LinkedIn friends. And I said, you asked 20 people who happen to be your friends. That's not a study. We have been studying the theory, the research, and the experience around talent. We've done studies of 450 companies around the world, especially in Asia, and done best-selling books on talent. We have done studies on leadership. We've done the Fortune top companies for leadership studies for 3 rounds with over time 1,500 companies, 30,000 data points, books on leadership. We've done studies on organization to redefine what that organization should look like with 1,200 companies around the world and written 10 books. And we've done studies on human resources with literally 120,000 respondents and a dozen books. Out of those studies, I am going to identify 10 opportunities. And here's the metaphor. None of us, at least myself, for the first time yesterday after 10 weeks, I went to a restaurant. We have not been to a restaurant. And it was kind of interesting with my friend to go to a restaurant and order. There were not many people in the restaurant. We were sitting safely apart. But I now want to be your waiter. I want to consider myself in a restaurant with you being an agent. And so I am going to give you a menu of insights. I've covered so far, the world is changing. We've got to find opportunity as we look forward. HR's job is to work with business leaders around talent, leadership, and organization. And here's the menu of insights that we can bring to that restaurant. So it's not a menu of food, it's a menu of insights. On the beginning, on the left, I'm going to talk about the appetizers, the mental models, how we think. And I'll have 4 items. On the right-hand side, I'm going to talk about 5 action items we can take to discover success. And in yellow at the bottom is the dessert, the final insight. So let me take a deep breath and get ready to go on this journey of a menu of insights. Again, I'll do a quick summary of where we've gone. We started by saying this crisis is a terrible thing to waste. There's an assumption. We have to create value in the marketplace. The context of COVID is there's a new set of challenges that create an inflection point. We have to create value around individuals, around the organization, and around leadership that connects them. How do we do that? We look for opportunities to discover in this area. I'm going to take a quick stop and see, Zori, if there are any questions. I know you're not on the screen and you're on mute, but did anything show up in the chat box? We've gone for about 15 minutes, and then I'm going to go through my 10 items. But did anything?
There is one question, Dave. Borislav Ignatov asked if you can show again the QR code. So that.
Thank you. Wow. Look at all those slides. There we go. So let me leave it up for just a moment and let you take a comment on it. So Zori, what have you're a journalist and we have not done a script. So this is, you may interview me, but I want to interview you. As you look at Bulgaria and Sofia and all these beautiful places, our daughter went back there last summer for her family vacation with her children and loved it on the Black Beach. What are you noticing in Bulgaria? How are people responding to this crisis? What would be your observations?
I think this a lot of the times it depends from on the way public messages are conveyed by the people in power. And at the beginning, it's very scary. We can do this, but you have to comply with the rules, stay at home. So I think a lot of people were really, really scared. And now we have gone to the to the complete opposite of this. So I think people are very confused at the moment. At least I am. That's how I feel.
That's interesting. And yeah, you're an observer. It's interesting. I hope people have it. I'll put this up again at the end so people will see it again. But what you just said for me is really interesting to this slide. Let me go here. In this challenge in yellow, how do we respond as individuals? We feel threatened. And I think that's what happens when the crisis hits. I'm anxious. I don't know what to do. And then I hope we can begin to discover opportunity and see what the good opportunities are. And that's what I want to do in my 10 points is say, here's 10 things we can learn as we go forward. So let me just stop. I'm encouraging people to send in questions or comments. I'll ask Zori once more, is there anything there? Or then I'll go through my 10. Or should you tell me when I should go ahead.
There is one more question if you want to answer it now or maybe later.
I'll answer it. Let me answer it now.
Okay, does the impact of choosing individuals vs organization depend on the type of business, service, product, or platform, or the company's size?
Great question. And obviously, as a professor, I have to say, yes, it all depends. but the answer is basically no. That in any industry, from service to manufacturing to a consulting, people count. They're the ingredients. But it's putting those ingredients together that make a difference. For example, food, you have raw ingredients, but when you put them together, you get an outcome. And that could be any kind of food. It could be a salad. It could be a cookie. It could be a meal. And so the individual ingredients become critical. But the way they combine into a collective organization becomes even more critical. And that occurs across organizations, across industries, government, private sector, across industry segments, hospitality, transportation, manufacturing, and across size and across geography. Is that true in Bulgaria? Is it true in Russia? Is it true in Brazil? So the basic premise, we need good people, but we got to put together the menu to get the people working well occurs. With that in mind, let me go to my insights. And I'm going to go through 10 insights pretty quickly, and then we'll have more time for questions and discussion. And again, don't hesitate to write them in. Think of these insights as they impact people, organizations, and leadership. Insight number 1, learn always. It's a great opportunity. The picture on the left comes from a story by Jonas Salk. He was the scientist who was leading the creation of the polio vaccine. And somebody said to Professor Salk, what made you so creative and committed to learning? And he said, I came home from school one day, and I may have been a 5 or an 11-year-old child. There's somebody I know who has a 5-year-old and an 11-year-old. And I took my milk, and I put it closer to the edge of the table. And my mother said, don't do that. I did it again. Don't do that. I did it again. Don't do that. And lo and behold, my milk spilled on the floor and broke the glass. What did my mother say to me? And in fact, most of us as parents, we know what we'd say. But here's what Jonas Salk said. My mother looked at me and said, Jonas, what did you just learn? Failure is an opportunity to learn. There's a quote by Carol Dweck, who wrote a great book called Mindset. My wife's a psychologist and loves that work. And so I'm showing things in my home. Last holiday we celebrated was Christmas, and I had this pillow made for my wife. I'm not failing, I'm learning. So I believe strongly in that. Thomas Edison, the inventor of the light bulb, I haven't failed. I found 1,000 ways that won't work. What does learning really mean for me? And let me give an example that my wife has taught me at a personal level that I think applies. And I was going to ask Zori to share this, but I won't, Zori, for obvious reasons. So we've all had in our lives things that have not gone well. We've had a failure, we've had a trial, we've had a disappointment. Think with me for just 5 seconds. What might that have been? It could have been a work, it could have been relationships, it could have been family, it could have been some other effort you made. For me, I can think about one where I didn't get a career opportunity I thought I would get. How did I feel at the time? You know, for me, I felt despondent, I felt lonely, I felt apprehensive, I felt incompetent. I didn't get that opportunity. Now think with me for the next 10 seconds, what did I learn from that? Well, for me, when I didn't get that opportunity, I learned to control my own career. I learned that I could do things that were difficult. And I learned I didn't have to succeed in the mind of others for me to be successful. How critical has that learning been since then? And for me, that lesson has been so critical. In fact, one of the takeaways is some of the most critical learning we ever do is in times of difficulty. In those dark and difficult times is when we have a chance to learn and to grow forward. Opportunity 2, look backward to be resilient. It's consistent with that learning. When I learned, what did I try? What did I do? What worked? What didn't work? And there's a lot of work in our profession right now about resilience, grit, perseverance, agility by looking backward. But in this crisis, I think the opportunity is to move forward. Look ahead. What will success look like? What do I want? And use this crisis as a time of reflection. I think one of the most critical questions we're ever asked for ourselves is, what do I want? What matters most to me? What are my passions, my strengths, my interests? How do they turn into something I want? And so I can create this vision of success. About 4 or 5 years ago, I was asked to do a commencement address at the University Business School where I teach. Most commencement addresses have a great life story, like Steve Jobs, who was the founder of Apple. I don't have that kind of life story, but I do coach. And so in that commencement address, I encourage people to think about what I coach with. And when I coach people, I often start with, what do you want? What do you want? What are your passions? What are your strengths? I hope coming out of this crisis, all of us who've had time to reflect in sheltering, think through, what do I want? And who do I serve? How do my wants enable somebody else? Wendy and I have found, my wife, that we spend time almost every day saying, who can we serve? Who can we benefit? Even in the sheltering world we're at, how do I then build an institution? And where am I on my values? This focusing on the future is so helpful. In a quick visual image, this is me about 4 or 5 years ago. I'm in my basement with a colleague named Gary Hamill, a brilliant colleague. Wendy comes down, she says, Dave, the hill's on fire. And so this is where we live, the trees in the left-hand picture on the right, looking up our street. At night, this is the fire. And if you notice on the left, we live on a lot where we have 1,100 pine trees. And so we were scared because if the wind had blown towards our trees, the embers would have burned our house. We had to evacuate. In the middle of that despair, we're struggling. But a few weeks and months later, we go for a walk. Notice the bushes are burned, they're black, but the shoots are growing. And we see that future where today, if I could, I'd show you the image of those mountains. Today, it's a beautiful place. And we can see, well, you can see a little bit. That's the outside of my office. And the mountains up there. Okay, I probably should not have done that because now I'm all out of focus and out of balance. I apologize for that. But today, a few years later, we see a future. So opportunity 1, learn. Opportunity 2, focus on the future. And we see these beautiful mountains. Opportunity 3, redefine the boundaries of work. redefine the boundaries of work. And I know people, Georgina raised her hand. Would you like to comment? Georgina? I don't know if we should stop for a comment. I saw a hand raise. Nope.
No, I haven't done anything.
No, I thought it was Gergana raised her hand, and I thought since she's helping host, I thought maybe I'd made a mistake. Okay.
No,
I'll
everything's
keep going.
fine.
Everything's fine. Good. I shouldn't have moved my laptop around to show the picture. So welcome to my office. I think we've had a mindset, and this gets into it so critical, that we go to work, we're at work, and we go home from work. Work is a place. I think we have to change that definition. Work is no longer a physical place. It's a set of values. And my job is to connect my work to the values that I hold so dear. The example is a story that I've been told. I don't know where it comes from. Somebody interviews a man or a woman laying bricks. What are you doing? I'm laying bricks. The next bricklayer says, I'm putting up a wall. The third bricklayer says, I'm creating a cathedral. Notice how they change their image of the same task. We need to change our image of work. That work is not about where we work. I work in my home office. I'm working through technology. Work is about sharing the values of creating value for others. Let me say that again. I care less about where you work as we go forward. I care more about what we do when we work. And what we should be doing is activities that help our customers be more successful. So the boundaries of work are shared work. In my world, and I'm going to bet, Zori, in your world, I don't go to an office to write my articles. I've written a number of books. I write my articles here in my home office. I travel. I write them on an airplane. I write them in all kinds of places. Work is not about a place. It's about what I do in that place. And I assume that you don't always have to go to your office to write your article, that you sometimes write it at home at midnight or at 5 a.m. And it's the same thing. Are we finding a mindset? Don't define work with a place, because we're going to be working in very different places. And finally, opportunity 4 and the mindset. These are my appetizers, the way to think. Navigate paradox. Handle tension. Handle duality. And I have some examples here. Paradox is an oxymoron, big baby. And I know in a foreign language, this may be difficult. A deafening silence, an open secret, passively aggressive, and then some statements that I kind of like. Hope they translate okay. Modern dancing is so old-fashioned, number 1. Number 3, Winston Churchill. A joke is actually an extremely serious issue. Number 4, I really like, and I hope it doesn't offend. Dolly Parton is an actress in America who puts on lots of makeup. And she says, you'd be surprised at how much it costs to look this cheap. I think we live in this world today in paradox. I love to think about paradoxes as 2 guardrails on a road. So if I'm leaving Sofia and I'm driving, there's guardrails. One guardrail says short term, the other says long term. I have to navigate between. It's a little bit like sailing. You always tack, you go back, you go forward. It's a bit like flying. If I'm flying from Sofia to Moscow, there's a straight line. The airplane is almost never exactly on that straight line. That's paradox. We navigate. In this crisis, I see 4 paradoxes that we have to constantly navigate. For example, a colleague of mine, Pat Wright, who's brilliant, did an essay this week. We have to care for the individual. Treat our people like human beings, not like resources, not like assets, not like cost. And I wrote Pat back and I said, Pat, I agree. The ingredients of an organization, caring for the individual, are so critical. But we've also got to care about the organization. Because if we don't build an organization that wins in the marketplace, there are no individuals. That's a paradox. Can I care about my people and can I attend to my organization at the same time? And can I navigate that? You don't manage it, you don't solve it, you navigate it. Can I do bold short-term actions and enduring long-term values? I was meeting with a business team in March as they faced this crisis, and they were making a list of short-term actions they had to take. At the end of that list, they had a whole bunch of things they had to do. I then did a very simple exercise that I hope as a business leader you do, or as an HR leader. I held up their core values. We believe in caring for people. We believe in accountability. We believe in results. And then I said, do these core values reflect the short-term actions you're taking? We've got to make sure that our actions reflect our values. In religion, Pope Francis, who is a great pope, took his name from St. Francis. In the 1100s, St. Francis was a wealthy nobleman, and he quit to become charitable and to give his wealth to charity. And here's his line: we preach the gospel and sometimes use words. We live the values. We live the values. We preach. We have values. And sometimes we use words. We have to live with our actions, our values. Do we converge? Do we focus? Do we diverge and use this to get variety? Are we resilient? Do we aspire? I've often then thought, what do I have to do to navigate those paradoxes? What do I have to do as an HR professional? What do I have to do as a business leader? How do we in HR help our leaders? And again, you can look at this. We've got it in articles that you can find. Can I deal with cognitive complexity? Can I see both sides of an issue? Yes, I see that side. I see the care for the individual, but I also see what you got to do with an organization. Am I learning? Number two, am I socially endearing? Can I disagree without being disagreeable? I was reading last night a biography about a big organization, and when you get underneath that organization, the leaders who succeed have disagreement. People disagree, but they still respect each other. They understand, they feel better. Under that number two, can we help other people, even in making difficult decisions, feel good about the decision that's made? Quick, number three, I'm managing my time well, and I get carried away with stories. So can we be socially connected? Do we visit with people not like us? Number four, am I aware of my style? As I said earlier, tend to be more of an introvert. But I'm learning in this crisis, I need to welcome you to my office. I need to show you pictures of my family. There's some more family pictures. I need to show you pictures of my grandmother. I need to show you pillows that I made. I need to open myself. And number five, do I have values? Oh, take a breath. I'm your waiter. I am giving you a menu of insights. I've just given you 4 appetizers or assumptions, how we think. Out of this crisis should be an incredible opportunity to learn. Look backward to be resilient, but look forward to success. Know what we want. Redefine work boundaries. Change the way we think about work. It's not a place, it's what we do. It's what we do. Navigate. Let me stop one more. Navigate paradox. Handle the tension. So let me see if there are questions here, and then I'll do the last actions. Yes,
sorry
please.
For interrupting. There is a question about this. How can we change the way of thinking of the managers in respect to the working place? Most of the managers believe that home office is actually a holiday.
Here's my experience. 20, 60, 20. 20% of the managers will understand it. They'll appreciate that work is not a place, it's a set of values. 20% will never understand it. And I like 20, 60, 20 in any change effort. 20% of people agree, they're supporting. 20% will never get there. My coaching for HR people is ignore both of those groups. The 20% who already understand it, they don't need your help. The 20% who will never get there are a waste of time. And you can say, well, it's 20, 70, 10. The 10 or 20, there's always the positive and the negative. What do you do with the 60% in the middle? 3 levers. Give them information. Help them have knowledge and information that this home office is the new reality and that, in fact, people can work. I was in a company yesterday. I was talking to or Friday, and with the head of HR yesterday, they did a survey. They asked employees, do you like or not like working at home office? The answer was 75% yes. Are you more or less productive? And the answer was also 75% yes. So they collected information about home office work. The second is get business leaders to see the behavior. So ask your business leader, when you worked at home, what were the benefits and what were the problems? What was your experience? And most business leaders will be like employees. There's good and bad. If I have a 5-year-old and an 11-year-old or a 2-year-old son or child, that's difficult. But there's benefits to that. So information, behavior, and then reinforce it. Let people see the benefits. Now, having said that, well, I'm going to come to that in just a minute. So I'll come to that. I don't think home office is the only solution to where we're going to work. So let me talk about that in just a minute. Great question. There's 3 ways to create change in the 60%: information, behavior, and reinforcement. And using all 3 of those ways will be helpful. Zori, can I go forward? I'm taking my counsel from you.
Sure. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you. We've just given you 4 mental models: to learn, to be resilient and focus forward, to change boundaries, and to navigate paradox. Now, what do I do? What are the actions? I've got 5. I'll go through them quickly. Personalize and tailor what we do. This crisis has affected people so differently. Here's my whole family. Move this light there so you can see it. We have 3 children. We have 10 grandchildren. That's the beautiful wife. That's the ugly grandfather. And our one daughter, again, our one daughter lived in Bulgaria with her children. And here's what we've learned. My wife and I are obviously older. We have a nice house. We have a yard with a lot of trees. This crisis has been difficult. But for our daughter with 2 children at home who are age 7 and 8 right now, this has been incredibly demanding because they've had to do homeschooling. Their children can't have friends over. For our other daughter, she found it delightful. For our son, he found it different. We have learned in this crisis to personalize work. And to that great question about where work will be done, going forward, we should continue to personalize and customize. Treat people differently. Not everybody's the same. There's not one answer for everybody. So some people, it's going to be better to work at home. For other people, it's going to be better to work in an office. For other people, it's going to be a remote office. For some people, it's going to be flexible hours. For other people, it's going to be required 9 to 5 hours. Learn how to customize and personalize work. That's a big shift that I think we're going to see going forward, to treat people differently. Number 6, build relationships. There's a great little test, and I've done this as a poll before, but I won't for sake of time. What's the leading cause of mortality? Is it high blood pressure caused by stress? Is it high cholesterol caused by fatty food? Is it social isolation, loneliness? Is it obesity, eating too much? Or is it drinking and smoking and doing drugs? It's an interesting test. The answer is number 3, social isolation. What the scientists have found, and there's a reference, is when you feel socially isolated, you're not connected with each other. So what's the takeaway? We're socially isolated. We're distant. I'm working in my office. Zori is now working in her mother's home. Others of you are at home. If you see pictures of each other, we're distant socially, but don't isolate. Don't isolate. Find ways to build relationships. I love this metaphor. I don't know where it came from. I took it from C.S. Lewis. He says, when you die, you go to heaven or you go to hell. And in both places, you have a meal. In hell, your arm is tied to a long spoon, and you cannot feed yourself, and people starve. In heaven, your arm is tied to a long spoon, and you feed each other, and you're nourished. Bowling alone. Don't isolate ourselves. Find ways in this crisis to make friendships, to model support, respond to bids, be curious, share yourself, serve someone, do something even at a distance. And I'll give an example. When the crisis hit in March, we were told in the United States, as well as Bulgaria and elsewhere, stay 6 feet apart. We agreed. And be sheltered. In America, and I don't know if this is true in Bulgaria, the big issue was toilet paper. You could not find toilet paper anywhere. Well, my wife and I live by ourselves, and we have plenty of toilet paper. So here's what we did. We got a little paper bag that you put a snack in, and we put in a roll of toilet paper. And we put in a drink and a candy bar. And we went out. We made 15 of these. We went out. We knocked on our neighbor's door on a Sunday. They opened the door, and they said, we're staying apart 6 feet. And we sang to them a song. We wish you a happy Sabbath. We wish you a happy Sabbath. We wish you a happy Sabbath with many great gifts. And we gave them the roll of toilet paper. They opened it. What did you just give us? And we said, we gave you a roll of toilet paper. That was fun. It was making a bid. It was being curious. And we stayed apart. What was really cute is about 3 days later, one of the families gave us back the paper bag, and it had the empty piece of the middle. And they wrote a note and said, thank you very much. You've been so helpful for us. Okay. I don't know what it is. Are you having fun? Are we celebrating? Are we responding? Are we befriending each other? Number 7, live your values. I said it before, it's so critical that this is a unique opportunity to create not just a culture, but the right culture. I love this picture. It's obviously from the United States, 2 men going to exercise, taking an escalator up to the fitness center. That is not living the values. Not at all. They're not living their values. As a parent, I remember when our children were young, and I don't have pictures of them that young. I probably should. When our children were younger, I won't show you more pictures. We used to tell them, clean your room, clean your room, clean your room. Then when our daughter became 11, the difference between 5 and 11, as I'm sure Gergan is looking, they changed. So we said to our 11-year-old, clean your room. She looked back at us and said, Dad, your room's a mess. I was a parent hypocrite. I was not living the values. I'll give you a business example, and he's passed away recently, and some of you may or may not have heard of him. His name was Jack Welch. Jack Welch was the chairman of General Electric Company, one of the most powerful executives in the 20th century, and incredibly successful. He discovered that when you participate with your employees, they'll be more productive and they'll produce more. And so he called me in as an advisor and he said, Dave, I am going to demand that our employees practice participative management. Let me say that again. I demand that you practice participative management. And I said, no, you can't demand participation because that's a hypocrite. You've got to model it. You've got to live the behaviors. So what does that mean? Create the right culture. Do not create a culture that's just based on your identity and pattern. I'm going to jump way ahead to this slide. When you go about creating a culture out of this pandemic, you have in almost all companies, if you're one of the business leaders or HR leaders, you have a purpose and a mission. On the left-hand side are our values. They're the roots of our tree. We believe in innovation. We believe in collaboration. I was with an executive yesterday. He was putting together his notes, and this is my notepad from him. We believe in reinventing. We believe in determination, agility, growth. Those were his values. And he said, that's my culture. And I said, sir, with all respect, don't go there. Don't look at culture as the roots of your tree. Look at culture on the right-hand side as the leaves of your tree. What do we want to be known for by our key customers? What's the identity we're going after? We want them to know us for new products. That's great. Our innovation goal is to create new products. We want them to be known. We want our customers to know us for quick response and moving quickly. That's agility. Build culture the right way. Number 8, and I did a webinar on this on Monday, and so I could spend hours on this one, actually on Tuesday in the United States. Harness uncertainty. I believe going forward, Some leaders are false hope. They say, here's the future. It's going to end on April 20th. On May 13th in Bulgaria, the world opens up and it's all done. Well, that's just a lie. I mean, that's false hope. Or give up. I just give up. I can't do it. Between those, I think we need to recognize uncertainty will become a way of life. I don't know what it means when we go back to school. I don't know what it means when we go back to work. How do we begin to live with some of that uncertainty? And if you're interested, I've got a LinkedIn article on Tuesday that goes through 6 principles to harness that. I'm going to skip it for sake of time. Harness uncertainty. Number 9, get guidance. Get guidance. I love the metaphor of guidance. When I was younger and newlywed, I went to a career guidance counselor who gave me some tests to look at my strengths, my abilities, and enabled me to then take a set of courses that would guide my career. Now that I'm older, I go to a retirement guidance counselor. And from that counselor, I can get some guidance about what we need to do if we ever want to retire. And I will never retire. Just get ready for that. I'm going to be so old sitting in my office. I'm going to have even wider hair. And Zori's going to be ancient, and she'll have published 3 books as a journalist. And we're still going to be going through this. My dear friends in HR and business, get guidance on talent, leadership, and organization. RBL.ai, we've just put out a new tool to do that. Get guidance in the green around talent, leadership, and organization. And my final tip, and then we'll have time for questions, and then I'll do a comment to wrap up. When I coach people, I almost always start by saying, what do you want? I started with that. I almost always end by saying, take care of yourself. Take care of yourself. Because if you can't take care of yourself, you can't take care of others. There's a great movie that was out a number of years ago called Bucket List. And when the men in the bucket list, the 2 actors, passed away and they went to the heaven, they were asked a question: did you find meaning in your life? And did you bring meaning to others? I plead with all of us in HR or in business to build our own brand, to know our image, our mission, our values, our purpose, so that we can take care of ourselves physically, emotionally, socially, intellectually, and spiritually, so that we have the capacity to help others. What do we do that? Every night, ask yourself, what was happy today that happened? To me, one of the happy days is I got to revisit Bulgaria. And I'm going to call my daughter who lived in Bulgaria and say, I just spent time with some people in Bulgaria that went like this at the end of my session. And that means, oh, yes, they liked it because they shake their heads the other way. And I'm going to say to Carrie, I hope you have fond memories. What are 3 things you're grateful for today? I would love to ask Zori this. I am so grateful for family, for health, for the beautiful world in which we live. What problem came up and how did we solve it? My day is just beginning. Your day is ending. I know I'll have a problem. What did I try today? Learn and mostly take care of yourself. I have just covered a lot of material. Those are my 10 menu items. Some assumptions about how we think, some actions about what we do, and a dessert about what we can work with. You know, with that, I think we have, I've tried to leave some time for questions, Zori, if there are, or comments. I hope this gives people a thought, and then I'd like about 1 minute at the end to wrap up. So I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you, Dave, for the inspiration and for really energizing today's webinar, because you bring so much positive energy. There are some new questions here. How can we change the way managers think and act, as most of them, when there is a crisis, do not try to save the employees, but rush to shorten the costs? And I believe employee is a concurrent advantage of the company, says Borislav Ignatov.
Yeah, and I'll do 2 things. I'll reinforce what I said before. 20, 60, 20. 20% of the managers will never behave in the right way. I've actually worked for some of those 20%. Quick story. I get invited into coach periodically, and with luck, I'd have a privilege of coaching some of you. So I met with a man, a very senior executive, senior person. We went in the room and I said, oh, I have the privilege of coaching you. And he said, yes. And I said, what do you want? What is it you like? And he said, I want to be coached. And he said, why? And he said, I want to be coached. Why? Well, it was a family company and publicly traded, but he said, my father is the chairman and he told me I needed coaching so that someday I could be chairman. And I said, so you want to be coached so you can tell your father you've been coached? And he said, that's it. What do you want to work on? He said, I don't care. And I said, well, why am I here? And he said, you're here because somebody wrote up your name as a good coach. And now I can tell my father and the other executives that I've been coached by a good coach. Why? I don't know. And I looked at him and I said, you know, this is easy. I'm not going to coach you. He's in that bottom 20%. He didn't want to be coached. And so I left. Actually, it was kind of funny. When I opened the door and walked out 2 minutes later, the head of HR was standing there. And he said, you came out 2 minutes later. I don't think you're going to continue. And I said, no. If you want a name of somebody who's going to charge you and not do anything, go find somebody else. That's the bottom 20%. The top 20%, get out of their way. In the middle, give people information, behavior, and reinforcement. Now, the other thing to do, I think, coming out of this crisis with people, so some leaders just don't understand people. I get it. I get it. I worked in another company. I shouldn't tell stories. I got to get to questions. They had not done an employee engagement survey for a long time. And I said, why? And they said, the last time we did an employee engagement survey, it showed that our managers did things wrong and the person who presented to them was punished. And they don't want another survey. And I said, are you crazy? That's why you do a survey. In fact, if your company's not done an employee engagement survey for a long time, do one if you're new. Here's why. If you've not done an engagement survey for a long time and your real score is 80 out of 100, it will probably be 10 to 15% lower because people have pent up emotion. They haven't shared it. So the score will come back a 70. Do it again in 6 months and the score will come back 80 or 85. And you can take credit for all the progress. That's a horrible manipulative tool. Lying with statistics. Sometimes you got to do that. How do I help managers? I simply listen to them and I say, what is it you want to get? I want to reduce cost. And I say, what are the ways of reducing cost? I can do different project allocations. I can cut out projects. I can do large project costs. I can do process improvements and I can do productivity. Where are we going to cut costs so that we can continue to succeed? And if I just simply cut cost on people, I'm going to lose productivity. I won't be able to manage the process and I won't do project allocations. Help your manager see that managing people will help him or her navigate those costs. Again, some of them won't change, but when we can show them that it will help them with their goals, we'll be more likely to succeed. That was a long answer with stories. I'm sorry. I'll try to be more precise. Next question, if there are any.
There is the next question. What would be your recommendation for living from our values at work, having in mind that there is an unclarity, fear, uncertainty, and that might be a risky move? How we as HRs could support psychological safety and at the same time allowing space for people to live their values, although employees' values might be different from their organization nuance.
Zori, it sounds like that's your next column. It's already completely written. Zori, what would you say? How do we help people live their values at work? Any thoughts?
You got me there.
Okay, that was rude. That was, and I didn't mean to be rude. That gave me half a second to think. I love to hold up a mirror to people. And once in a while I say, show me your calendar. Where did you spend your time yesterday? Who did you meet with? What issues did you talk about? What problems did you work on? And then simply say, do those reflect what you value the most? For example, I often hear business leaders say, I value my family. I value my son. I value my children. I value my partner. And then I say, let me hold up a mirror to your calendar. How many hours did you work last week? 70. How many evenings were you home for dinner? None. And I say, your calendar tells me what you value. I call it the calendar test. So I love to ask executives to pass the calendar test. What is it you value? Write it down. I value customer service. Great idea. In the last week, in the last month, what percent of time did you spend with customers? Well, I was too busy. Then you don't value it. You've got to show that your values show up in your behaviors. I value innovation. So what did you do in the last week to drive and foster innovation? What did you do to help the company become more innovative? If you can't create a connection between what you espouse as what you value and what you really believe, you create, again, that leadership hypocrisy.
There is here a specific question for one of the industries that have been hardly hit from the COVID crisis. Dimitar Karnev asks, can you tell us what do you think for the perspectives in front of the music industry after these days? And he's mostly speaking about the music live industry, rock festivals, tours, corporate events. And he says, please focus on social side of human behavior about this type of events in the future.
And here's the notice principle number 8, uncertainty. I don't know exactly music. Here's my prediction. We're going to see some increase and some decrease. Music is a source of relief. Kopka, my daughter's close friend from Bulgaria, and I think of Kopka. She's one of the most creative people. I've asked Kopka periodically, what gives you relief? She says, I put on my headphones and I listen to hard rock and it relaxes me. And I said, you must be from Bulgaria. No, that was a Bulgarian joke. Music is so cool. In fact, my television is right here. I've quit watching the news because it's tiring and it's old. I listen to music. And music, I think, is going to increase as a mechanism to help us relax and renew. The social concerts, the social setting, I don't know. My prediction is, without more knowledge than the one who asked, I think in the short term, people will be hesitant. Many will be hesitant to go to concerts. But I'm betting within 6 or 9 months, we'll be back there. Some of that maybe we'll have a vaccine so that people won't be as threatened by the COVID-19 virus. And I'm betting we'll be back to those concerts. Why do I say that? I just, before this call, drafted my column for LinkedIn next Tuesday. There's a term that nobody knows. It's called recidivism. I can't say it, recidivism. It's what you return to your old habits. I've lost weight. I found weight. 75% of the people who borrow money to pay off credit cards have the same credit card debt again in a year. We return to our old habits. If you went to concerts before, you go again. In the United States, we had a holiday, and in the UK, they had bank holiday this weekend. Don't go to the beach and stay distant. The beaches were jammed. Social gatherings were jammed. People return to their old habits. So on the one hand, I think music will increase as a way to help people through the emotional energy. Concerts may decrease in the short term, but I think they'll come back to normal in the long term.
If I can follow up on that, what if you come from an industry and you have to change your business model because of this whole COVID crisis and situations? Do you also have to change or rethink your values or the company culture when you have to, change the business model?
I love the question. Thank you. I shouldn't do this because it's way back here. When you define culture from the outside in, starting with brand, so we say to our customers, we're going to give you a great retail experience, shopping experience. That's the brand we're going to give you. That doesn't change, and it may be online instead of in store, but the value is the same. Amazon says our brand or identity, our culture, is to give a customer anywhere a great shopping experience. That could be in a store, and Amazon is now opening stores. It could be online, and it could be any way. And so if the value is defined from the outside in, that value probably doesn't change much, even though our models and customers may change. And that's what I'd hope we get. I hope people pick 2 of these 10
there
items.
There is a question, how...
Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Um, how could you describe the future HR leader?
Oh, I'd love to talk about that. Get on our website. We've done a lot of research. Um, I think the future HR leader, I'll do three things. Number one, creates value for the company by thinking outside in. I don't do HR work to do HR. I do it to create value for our customers, our investors outside. Number two, I deliver talent, leadership, and organization. That's what I help deliver. And number three, I have the competencies to make that happen around my personal style, around business knowledge, and around making change happen. Those are the three competencies we've seen. So I add value, I deliver talent, leadership, and organization, and I demonstrate the right competencies.
Thank you. There is a very interesting question from the e-commerce industry. I am working in the e-commerce industry and workloads grew 4 times over a couple of weeks, which was our biggest challenge. We weren't prepared at all for this scenario and prioritization was key. Not sure we manage it the best way. Which are the advices that you give us for scalability and quick growth?
I look at these 10. And by the way, it's really interesting. We did a survey with HR Congress a couple of weeks ago. We had 2,000 people fill it out. Has this coronavirus and pandemic made business more? Did it help your business grow or shrink? 38% said, no, 42% said shrink, and 38% said grow. I was shocked. I thought it would have been 80% shrink. So my counsel to you in the growth industry, number one, learn always. What did we learn in this crisis about growth that we need to adapt elsewhere? I would also probably say number 9, go get guidance. What do I have to do around talent, leadership, and organization in order to rapidly scale and grow my business? The example I've run into lately is Zoom. We're doing a Zoom call. The new head of HR at Zoom, I see her name, and Lynn Oldham, started in November. I talked to her after she started. It's a great job. I'm looking forward to it. Then comes March, April, May, and Zoom is just booming. Its market value is more than the 5 largest airlines in the United States. She's having to get guidance, number 9, on what do we do with the right people, the right leadership, the right organization in order to scale that and make it work. My final comment would kind of be number 10. Don't get mad at yourself. Nobody expected this to happen in the e-commerce business. Learn, take care of yourself, get guidance, and be positive.
There is a question about universities. Where do universities go from now, and how do you expect they will keep it online, but on what cost?
Let me go to number 8, uncertainty. We just simply don't know. At least that's what's happening right now in America. For example, will there be in-room classes in the fall when America starts classes after summer? We aren't sure. If they have in-room classes, will people sit 6 feet apart from each other? Will they have to wear a mask? We simply don't know. One of my predictions is that knowledge and ideas will become more important. How we generate and distribute that knowledge becomes less. The other thing is, we know we're going to be doing work with virtual work. We know that online education will increase. I did a whole webinar on that one of the problems we've got is that the traditional way to do online learning has not been very successful. We tried massive open online courses, MOOCs. The completion rate is 3 to 5%. We've got to find better ways to do online education, which is often called blended learning. And there are some tips around that are clear. But I don't know exactly universities. What I do know is there's going to be a lot of number 8, uncertainty. We've got to focus on little steps and experiment to figure out what we can do to improve.
Okay, thank you. There are no questions from the public at this point, but there is one. Sorry. How can we express values via clothing, knitwear industry?
How do we express values in the clothing industry? Well, some of it is in the products that we create. Notice I'm in a very conservative suit and a conservative shirt. the clothing we create is somewhat our values. So Kopka, our friend from Bulgaria, she would not be ever seen in a shirt like this, partly male, female, but she's very creative. She's very liberal. She's very different. And the other is the values that we espouse within the company. What is it we in the clothing company want to be known for? Do we want to be known for innovation? Do we want to be known for great service? That's Zappos. Do we want to be known for low cost? That's Walmart, and in the United States. So what kind of clothing image are we trying to create in the marketplace? Is it style? Is it innovation? Is it access? And that identity in the marketplace should shape the way we treat our employees in the workplace.
Thank you. Can we, in the conversation before we start the recording, we talked about a little bit about work and life balance. And if you allow me, I would like to ask you a question. If there's no such thing as the office hours from 9 to 5 anymore, and you said work is no longer a physical space, but we still need space to clear our heads, to take care of our families and our personal needs. How do we do that when it is no longer, I don't know, we can no longer define work in such
great question.
Definite word. Yeah.
I should have highlighted that on number 5. I think we have to customize work and tailor work. And I think we have to say there are times in flexible work that I'm not going to work. For example, I have worked at home most of my career. My office is at home. In fact, I don't live near my university. There are times when I take time with our children. For example, in the United States on Monday, we celebrated what's called Memorial Day, where you honor the dead. Our son with his children, and we have a son with a lot of children, 5 children, we met with them and we spent 4 hours going to the cemetery to honor our ancestors. I took my phone, I did not take phone calls, and then I came home and did it. I shouldn't confess this. It's early this morning. I was worried about this session, so last night I woke up very early in my time, about 3:30 or 4 o'clock in the morning, worried about this session, reviewing my notes. And so I'm going to be done with this session in my time at 8:15 or 8:30, and I know it's much later in Bulgaria. I shouldn't confess this. I'm probably going to go take a nap because that's the flexibility I have. And I'm going to go rest for an hour and a half because that's going to be helpful for me. So my counsel to any of us as young parents, figure out what matters most and put children first. And look at your calendar this week. Here's a test. In my next week calendar, where have I blocked out time for my spouse or partner? Where have I blocked out time for my children? Where have I blocked out time for the relationships I care about? Where have I blocked out time for myself? And you know what? We don't put it in our calendar. And now I'm testing myself. Today at noon, 4 hours from now, I have a call with 4 colleagues who I went to college with. And we're going to have once a month, we have a call with friends. I blocked out 2 hours to have that call. I'm not going to work. Tomorrow, I blocked out, well, that's not true. Yeah, tomorrow I have calls with friends. Now, I think sometimes we've got to be initiatives and we've got to take charge of that. The other thing that balances that is to let our family and friends know that they are our priority. I was coaching a business leader and he said, I struggle with work life. To be honest, business leaders are often going to work long hours. That's the nature of the game. When you're a journalist on deadline, you are going to work long hours. It's harsh. One of the things this business leader was doing, they were getting so lost with work that they were losing contact with their children and their partner. I bought that business leader a phone and a 1-year subscription. And she said, what did you do that for? And I said, this phone and number, I encourage you only to give the number to your children, your husband, and your mother. I don't have the number. Nobody has the number except your children, your husband, and your mother, and maybe a sibling. When that phone rings, you will answer it anywhere you are, any time of day, anywhere in the world. And your children know that they can get in touch with you. That even though you're busy as an executive, she was running a big organization with 40,000 people. When that phone rings, they are your priority. By the way, the message is a wonderful signal. Work-life balance is taking charge and having control and personalizing it, but it's also giving access to those we care the most about. I don't often give out my cell phone number. My children have it. I was doing a talk one day somewhere in the world, and the phone rang, and it was my children. And I put the group, I shouldn't confess this, I put the group into teams. So they do a team exercise. And I went and I answered my phone and I said, what's up? I promised you anywhere, anytime, when that phone rings, I will answer it. And my daughter said, oh, I may have not called for a good reason. She said, Dad, we're rebuilding a building. We have some real estate and we're changing the bathroom in the men's room. And we don't know if we should half-size urinals or full-size urinals. And I said to my daughter, that is not worthy of a phone call on this phone. I will talk to you later tonight. Now, those are Zori, and I hope, my wife and I, and I'll do my final comment. I have a PhD. My wife has a PhD. She was getting a PhD while she was raising children. And people have said, how did you do it? And I'm now going to give you an American word that won't translate well. Muddle. M-U-D-D-L-E. We muddled. I don't know the word in Bulgarian. We don't know how we did it. We didn't have a clear answer, but we knew that there were priorities. I'll give one other example. My wife was doing her PhD. It was demanding. It was hard. We happened to celebrate Christmas. So for about 4 years in a row, my gift to my wife was on Christmas Day, we would open gifts. And then I took our 3 children for a week and I flew somewhere. I flew to a beach. I flew to a resort. And for 1 week, my wife had time completely by herself. That was our solution. And I said, so the best gift I can give you is to leave. And she said, yeah, go away and take the children. Now, I hope you will find your pathway with your mother, your partner, your child, and I hope others will find it. It is not easy. Don't lose sight of those precious children and let them know that they matter most. And as they get older, they can get a hold of you anywhere, anytime.
Thank you.
I want to make can I make a final comment?
Okay.
No, you go ahead. Go ahead.
Maybe just the last question, if you allow.
Sure.
In the current situation, a lot of companies are prioritizing their business, the way they will manage the crisis in order to exist. Norms change towards efficiency and effectiveness. If you are in the middle management position and you don't have as much decision power, what would you do to get the management on top to refocus back on people and continue investing and building a culture that is supportive of employees?
Great question. And there have been about 3 questions on the same issue: is how do we influence our leaders? And I'm going to go back to the 3 levers. Information, give them knowledge from legitimate and credible sources. It may not come from you, it may come from someone else. So give people information. 2, help them publicly behave as if they're committed. Structure their conversations, help them see the value, get them in front of people. And then 3rd, reinforce their new behavior. Information, behavior, and reinforcement are the levers that I think we can use to try to influence. Now, again, 20% may not be influenced. That's the reality. But those are the 3 best levers.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to end with a very simple question. I love to ask people, what was the best year of your life? And I often get an answer, oh, when I was a teenager, when I was in college, the first year I was married. The other day, somebody said, the first year after I was married, which I think is kind of funny. When I had my child, when my child left home. All of those are great answers, and I think they're wrong. I think the best year of your life is the next 12 months. And I'm going to say that strongly. The best year of your life is what's ahead. And I hope the ideas we've shared in a crisis, not in a crisis, is the best is yet ahead. And here's the QR code again, if you want to get copies. I hope it gives you some things you can work at. And when you get into that website, you see, follow me on LinkedIn, or you can get emails through the website that you've got. what a privilege. I'm on LinkedIn quite often, in fact, to join you. Zori, thank you. Gergana, thank you so much, and good luck with your 5 and your 11-year-old as you try to navigate and muddle through these very difficult times.
Dave, thank you very much for your time and for the inspiration. I think we all leave this webinar video recording of this session will be available after the webinar or on our YouTube channel. Thank you for joining us and have a good day.
Thank you. Thank you.